Yeah, I was maybe a bit fast with making the shift to the small business workshop. But of course, in that area, there are people with questions about their own small business that also have these same aspects in the invisible world, you could say, where certain problems they experience in their business come from. Um, so what is the different approach for, let's say, the small business owners that we're now going to work with? We have the work in the personal field. We just talked about it. Now we're going to do a separate workshop for these people. Will the approach be different? I expect so, in a certain way, but in another way it will be the same. So I'm curious. Answer now.
Yeah, how do I follow
get out of this? Yeah.
So let me. What most of us are never taught, or we're taught to deny. We're taught to deny that there is, in fact, an invisible world and an invisible system in operation. And it's as true in a personal life or a family life as it is in a business life. And that in an equivalent way, when two people get together and form a family, they create an energetic field that is a part of their ancestral field. And when their children go, they take parts of this field with them into their own lives and the fields that they create. When people create an organization, whether it's a business or an NGO or a political organization, whenever they form an organization, they too form a field or a system that literally has a life of its own. It's distinct from the people, and yet it's in very much reflects the behavior of people, and that there are things that we do that have only kind of a local, personal, or interpersonal effect. So if I touch my hand to a stove and I burn myself and I get angry and yell at a colleague or a spouse for this, I create a little bit of a local trauma or drama. But there are other things that we do that create impacts into the larger system. And that's something that people, well, again, we're not taught to recognize that those things exist. So, for example, if someone founds or starts a small company, and a friend gave them the idea for the company, and they begin the company and never acknowledge where their idea came from, they've created a problem in the field, and their organization is going to struggle because of that, the failure to acknowledge the idea or the intellectual property upon which this company was based.
They should honor this person that gave them the idea at the first time, or something like that. They should really realize that and know it from the inside. That.
Yeah. And yet the very odd thing is sometimes a psychological acknowledgement is insufficient. The energy has to happen, or the acknowledgement has to happen in energy.
And this working with the energies, that is especially something that you do in the constellation work. You have certain rituals for it, you have certain models for it, certain words also. And as I experience it, you have a very sharp and loving eye to see what is going on and how to fix it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to contribute something, but yeah, because you now talk about what should happen, and I just want to add, I think it does happen when you work with people. So yeah, and the same kind of processes are probably there in personal work and in business work, but in business it may have different consequences if you have certain things in the energy level, in the invisible world, that are not working well.
Yeah, besides when this is kind of a mean thing to say, but years ago, a consultant, a friend of mine said, you know, the biggest problem any company has is its owner and its founder. And in my own life, I've had my own corporation for 22 years. And it's very clear that me personally has been the biggest problem for my company. Meaning that my foibles and my places where I still need to grow are constantly in the way of my company. But distinct from that, there are other issues in a company. For example, I remember some guys coming to me and they said, look, you know, we pay our overhead every month, and we pay the costs. They call it costs of goods sold, and we pay our overhead, but we absolutely have no profit. And so we looked in the field, and in energy, there was no place for profit to happen in their company. It simply didn't exist in the field. And the thing that we're never taught is things that exist in this shared reality or consensual reality of ours have to exist first in energy before they can exist here in this reality. And for whatever reason, there was no such thing as profit. And so we established in energy this phenomenon called profit, so that this company could not only continue to pay its overhead and its cost of goods sold, but start to get some profit from the whole thing. So it's kind of indefensible intellectually that we can install something in energy and have it start working, but it happens, and it happens all the time.
So here I jump in for a moment.
Yes, please.
Indefensibly intellectually is quite a wordful. You mean you cannot really understand it with the head, but you can see it happening in energy, or you can feel it with the heart.
Yeah. Thank you for that. It's not. It doesn't seem like it's a plausible or rational thing, and yet I want to make a comment here that's something that half the population know entirely well, and that is women. If you ask a woman to how she knows whether someone is noticing her or checking her out, she'll say, well, I sense it. If you ask a woman to, are there rooms or businesses you walk into or people you're around, and how do you know whether you're comfortable or uncomfortable there? They say, well, I feel it. So half the people on the planet, as a part of their nature, perceive these non-ordinary realities or parts of them. And they've essentially, our world has essentially said, well, don't talk about that. Certainly not in business. But the same way that a woman knows what's going on somewhere in energy, it's not a rational thing in a man's perspective. And yet it's the same process or same phenomena when you're working with change in an organization. So say, for example, somebody is, say you have a supervisor working for you and they fire somebody really with no adequate grounds. And later you learn about that supervisor made that poor choice and you terminate that supervisor and hire a new one. Well, the new one that comes into that position is already in trouble because the problem of the wrongful termination stays in that position. It doesn't go away with the person.
Yeah.
And so,
it's connected to the position that someone takes and not, okay.
Yeah, it's called the functional area, but in energy terms, it's literally a place. And it's a little bit like a node in an electrical circuit, or think of the house is wired and it has rheostats for the lights. That Sometimes you adjust the rheostat so the light gets dimmer. Well, when someone creates a problem in the company, they're putting a restriction on the flow of energy through that system. And the whole system will be less light as a consequence.
Yeah.
And so the company Constellations is to go in and open up the flow of energy so that there's the strength and buoyancy for the company to succeed.